You know, there's a really specific moment that I think almost everyone dreads.
Hmm.
It's not some big dramatic thing. It's usually quiet. It's like when you're getting out of bed on a Tuesday morning. Or maybe you're just standing up from the couch after a few hours of TV.
It's the groan and shuffle.
Yes, exactly. That's it. You go to stand up, and there's that involuntary noise you make. And, your knees feel tight, your hips feel rusty.
And a script just immediately starts running in your head.
It's totally subconscious. You just think, well, that's it. I'm getting older. My parts are wearing out.
It is the universal narrative of aging, isn't it? We automatically equate stiffness with damage. We assume that if it hurts, if we feel that resistance, it has to be because the mechanical parts, the bone, the cartilage, are grinding down like old brake pads.
Right. We see the body as this machine with a clear expiration date. And because we believe that story, that the machine is breaking down, we treat it like a mechanical failure.
So we reach for painkillers.
We reach for the painkillers or the creams to suppress inflammation. We're basically just putting tape over the check engine light so we don't have to look at it.
But here's the provocative question that's really driving our deep dive today. What if that light isn't warning you about broken parts at all? What if it's just warning you about low oil?
And that is the absolute core question we're unpacking. We've got a whole stack of research here, and we're talking about studies from some heavy-hitter Ivy League institutions, mostly from the early 2000s, that just completely flips that wear and tear script on its head.
It really does. This research suggests that what we call aging in our joints, that stiffness, that ache, it might not be this inevitable degeneration. It might actually be a problem of dehydration.
It sounds almost too simple, doesn't it? Like, oh, just drink more water. But as we went through these sources, it became so clear this isn't just about how much water you drink.
No, not at all.
It's about the physics of whether your joints can actually hold on to that moisture.
Correct. So today we're going to get into the biomechanics of what's called synovial fluid, why your go-to painkillers might actually be making things worse.
Oh, that part is fascinating.
And we're going to break down a specific methodology that came out of this research, something they call biodynamics.
So if you've ever felt like the Tin Man, just looking for his oil can, this one is definitely for you.
Let's start with that big shift.
Yeah, because for decades, the medical model for joints was purely mechanical.
Exclusively. It was the wear and tear model. I mean, picture door hinge. You open and close a heavy door 1,000,000 times, and eventually the metal grinds down. The pin gets loose.
And that was the assumption for our knees, our hips.
Exactly. If it hurts, the structure must be damaged. End of story.
But the sources we looked at, they highlight this massive glaring hole in that theory, something that doctors were seeing in their clinics that just didn't make sense.
Anomalies. That's what always drives science forward. Researchers started seeing all these patients who were in significant pain. They'd come in complaining of stiffness, barely able to move without wincing.
So the doctors would order the scans.
The whole workup. X-rays, MRIs, and the scans would come back pristine.
Which has to be the most maddening thing for a patient to hear. Good news, you're perfectly healthy.
Right. Meanwhile, you can barely walk to your own mailbox.
The machinery looked brand new on paper, so why did the patient feel like they were 80 years old?
And then on the flip side, you had researchers looking at teenagers putting their joints under massive stress. I mean, skateboarding, jumping off stairs, running marathons, and they would just bounce right back, zero stiffness.
So it wasn't just about the parts being new versus old. There was another variable, a missing piece.
And that's when the light bulb went on for these biomechanical researchers. They realized they were obsessed with the solid matter, the bone and the gristle, and they were completely ignoring the environment those parts live in.
They needed to stop looking at the joint as a dry hinge.
And start viewing it as a hydraulic system.
I love that analogy. It completely changes the visual. A dry hinge grinds. A hydraulic system. It relies on pressure, on fluid.
Precisely. Your joints are not designed to grind. I mean, if your bones are touching, something has already gone catastrophically wrong. They're designed to glide. They essentially float.
And the substance that allows them to float, the hydraulic fluid in this machine,
Is synovial fluid.
Okay, let's get into the glop, as you called it. Synovial fluid. I think I remember that term from high school biology, but for most of us, it's just, joint juice. What is it actually doing?
Joint juice isn't a terrible starting point, but it really undersells it. It's a biological marvel. In the simplest terms, it's a thick fluid, kind of like egg whites, and it's inside the joint castle.
Okay.
And according to the research we're looking at, it has 3 absolutely critical jobs. And if it fails at any one of them, you're in trouble.
All right, lay them on us. Job number 1.
Lubrication. That's the obvious one. It coats the cartilage, so when you bend your knee, the surfaces just slide past each other with almost zero friction.
Like a puck on an air hockey table. The air lets it glide.
Perfect analogy. Without it, you're just dragging the pick across sandpaper.
Got it. What's a number 2?
Shock absorption. It's a
Huh.
buffer. When you jump off a curb or even just take a heavy step, you don't want that impact going straight into your bone. The fluid distributes that pressure throughout the whole capsule.
It's like the suspension strut in a car.
Exactly. But job number 3, this is the one that really, it just blew my mind when I was going through the notes. You called it the Uber Eats function.
The Uber Eats function.
Yes. This is so crucial to understand. Most tissues in your body, muscle, skin, organs, are vascular. They have blood vessels running through them, delivering oxygen and nutrients.
Lunch gets delivered right to the door.
Right. Cartilage does not have that. It's avascular. No blood supply. It's like a house that's been disconnected from the water main.
Wait, so how does it stay alive? How does it even repair itself?
It starves unless it gets fed by the synovial fluid.
Oh.
The fluid itself contains all the nutrients and oxygen that the cartilage needs. But here's the kicker.
Okay.
Since there's no heart pumping blood into the cartilage, the only way the nutrients get into the tissue is through compression and release.
Like a sponge.
Exactly like a sponge.
Oh.
When you move, when you walk or squat or bend your arm, you squeeze the dirty, used-up fluid out of the cartilage. When you release that pressure, the cartilage sucks the fresh, nutrient-rich synovial fluid back in.
That is fascinating. So movement isn't just about getting from A to B. It is literally the feeding mechanism for your joints.
If you don't move, you don't eat.
Wow.
But, and this is the absolute crux of the hydration argument in this research, if that synovial fluid is degraded, if it's too thin, or if there just isn't enough of it,
The cartilage starves no matter how much you move.
it's a starvation loop. The sources explain that things like aging and inflammation, they don't just attack the cartilage directly with a hammer, they degrade the quality of the fluid first. The fluid loses its viscosity. It turns from a thick, protective gel into this watery sludge.
And watery sludge can't lubricate, and it can't cushion.
And it certainly can't feed the tissue properly. So friction increases. The glide turns into a grind. And that is when you feel that stiffness. And remember our mystery of the normal scan.
The MRI that shows perfectly fine bones while the patient is in agony.
Right. That's because the MRI sees the solid parts. It doesn't necessarily tell you that your hydraulic fluid has turned to water. The machinery is fine, but the oil is degraded.
That is such a massive aha moment. It completely reframes that sensation of stiffness. It's not necessarily that my knee is broken, it's that my knee is thirsty.
Or that the fluid inside isn't thick enough to do its job.
And this leads us right into the problem with how we usually handle this. You feel that stiffness, that grind. What's the first thing you do?
Go to the medicine cabinet.
You reach for the bottle. Ibuprofen, aspirin, maybe a topical cream. You just want it to stop hurting.
Right. You take a painkiller. And the source material is incredibly critical of this reflex. It argues that by doing this, you are treating the signal, not the system.
It's like taking the battery out of a smoke alarm because the beeping is annoying you.
While the fire is still smoldering in the kitchen, it's the perfect analogy. And it's actually worse than that. The research suggests that relying on these suppressants might actually reduce natural fluid production over time.
So wait, how?
Well, think about the mechanics. You take a pill, the pain signal gets blocked, you feel better, so what do?
You go about your day, you go for your run, you carry the groceries.
Exactly. But the drain is still dry. It's still full of that watery sludge. You've just turned off the warning sensor. So now you're grinding that unlubricated joint even harder because you can't feel the damage you're doing.
It's a trap. You're accelerating the wear and tear because you masked the symptoms of the dehydration.
You're driving a car with no oil, but you put tape over the dashboard light so you wouldn't worry about it. And we have to talk about why this is happening so much earlier now. The sources are very clear on the modern lifestyle factor.
Oh, I know this list. I feel this list in my soul.
It's not just we're lazy. It's about the physics of how we sit. It's the static load problem. Remember our sponge analogy?
Squeeze and release to feed the cartilage. You need the pump.
Right. When you sit in a chair for 8 hours, or you stand in one spot at a standing desk, you are compressing the sponge and never releasing it. You are squeezing the fluid out and keeping it out.
So the cartilage is just sitting there, compressed and starving.
For hours, every single day. Combine that with inconsistent water intake, plus poor posture creating micro stress.
Right.
It's a recipe for rapid fluid degradation.
And this is why we're seeing people in their 30s who should have healthy joints complaining about feeling like an old house settling.
It's not age in years, it's the cumulative effect of a drying out process. Think of fruit. A grape becomes a raisin. A plum becomes a prune. What's the difference?
Moisture.
You dry out.
That is a vivid image. I'm not sure I want to be a prune.
Well, the goal is to stay a plum as long as possible.
So we've established the problem, the old view, mechanical failure. The new view, hydraulic failure. We know painkillers mask the issue, maybe make it worse. So now, let's talk about the solution that's presented in this source material. This is where this biodynamics concept comes in.
Right. And looking at the documents, biodynamics, specifically their joint genesis concept, it's not presented just as a product you buy. It's framed as a translation of this very specific research.
An attempt to apply the hydration theory to real life.
Exactly. It's the so what do we do about it part.
Sure.
And the philosophy behind it is what's really interesting for our deep dive. It's built on this one core idea. Restore joint hydration first. Everything else follows.
Okay, but here's the question I think every listener has right now. I definitely have it. If the problem is dehydration, why can't I just drink a gallon of water a day? Why not just carry a bigger water bottle?
That is the million-dollar question. And the answer is the difference between intake and retention.
Okay.
You can pour water into a bucket all day long, but if the bucket has a hole in it, it's never going to stay full.
Or if the sponge has become hard and crusty, the water just runs right off it.
Exactly. As we age, we start to lose the specific molecules, things like hyaluronan that naturally hold on to moisture inside the joint capsule. So the water you drink just passes through your system. It doesn't stick around where you need it.
Ah, so the biodynamics approach is focused on supporting the synovial membrane, the lining that produces the fluid.
Yes. The goal isn't just add water, it's fix the bucket.
I see.
The sources describe it as encouraging smoother, friction-free movement by thickening that hydraulic fluid back up. It's about restoring the viscosity. And there's a huge psychological shift that comes with this.
From emergency repair to daily maintenance.
That distinction really stood out to me too. Most of us treat our health like emergency triage. We wait until something breaks, then we panic and try to fix it.
This is framed as a mobility ritual. It's something you do proactively.
You don't take it because you're broken. You take it because you want to keep moving freely. It's for the person who isn't injured yet, but who feels that friction, just starting to creep in.
It's the difference between fixing a flat tire on the side of the highway and just keeping your tires inflated to the right pressure in the first place.
Or, to go back to our hydraulic analogy, it's checking the fluid levels daily rather than waiting for the engine to seize up.
So the mechanism of action here isn't a quick fix number. It's not going to give you that instant absence of feeling that a strong painkiller might.
No, and the literature is very clear on that. It shouldn't numb you. The source says the result isn't a numbing sensation. It's a noticeable difference in how joints move. It's all about restoring the glide.
If you take a painkiller, you feel nothing. If you restore hydration,
You feel movement.
I think that's a really empowering shift for the listener because damage sounds so permanent. Degeneration sounds irreversible. If a doctor says my cartilage is gone, I feel helpless.
But dehydration.
That sounds like something I can fix. That sounds manageable.
It puts the control back in your hands. If the framework is pain leads to inflammation, leads to suppression, you're always fighting a defensive battle. You're losing ground.
But if the framework is stiffness leads to dehydration, leads to restoring lubrication, now you're on offense. You're actively supporting the system.
And it just highlights how amazing the body is if you give it what it needs. We tend to think of it as this fragile thing that just gives up.
But really, it's often just asking for the right resources.
It is. It's asking for the tools to do its job. And for our joints, that tool is fluid. The text mentions that these researchers found that when joints are properly hydrated, movement just feels natural again.
That feeling of youthful motion.
It's not magic, it's not turning back the clock, it's just physics, it's low friction.
I want to circle back to the modern lifestyle part for a second, because that's where this really hits home. We aren't going to stop sitting at desks. I'm not going to stop watching movies. We're not going to stop aging. So this ritual concept, it seems like the only viable path forward.
It's about adaptation. If our environment, our chairs, our screens, our habits, is actively dehydrating our joints, then we have to actively counter that. We can't just hope for the best.
The biodynamics philosophy is about acknowledging the reality of modern life and creating a buffer against it.
It's joint support, not joint repair.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
And the source material emphasizes that joints respond best to consistent support. You can't just hydrate once a month. It's a biological system that needs constant input.
Which brings us right back to why the painkillers are such a trap. They're episodic, you take them when it hurts.
But hydration needs to be constant. You don't wait until you're dying of thirst to drink a glass of water. You drink throughout the day to stay alive. Your joints need that same courtesy.
Okay, so let's synthesize this for everyone listening. We've covered a lot of ground. We started with the idea that we're all just destined to become stiff, creaky robots.
That was the script we were given.
But the research flips that script. We found out that a lot of that stiffness is actually just a low oil light blinking on the dashboard.
It's a fluid problem, not a broken parts problem.
We learned that synovial fluid is the unsung hero of mobility. It lubricates, it absorbs shock, and it literally feeds our starving cartilage through that amazing sponge-like mechanism.
And we realized that the traditional numb-the-pain approach just treats the signal, not the system, and might actually make things worse.
By encouraging us to grind on dry joints.
Exactly.
And finally, we looked at how this biodynamics philosophy takes this high-level research and turns it into a daily ritual of hydration and support instead of just emergency triage.
It's a real shift from sick care to health care in the truest sense. It's about preservation.
You know, it really changes my perspective on what it means to get old. We usually define aging by the number of candles on a cake, but maybe, physically speaking, aging is just the gradual loss of fluid.
There's a lot of scientific truth to that. I mean, we're born being mostly water. As we age, we literally dry out. Our tissues become stiffer, less pliable.
So the fountain of youth isn't some magical spring hidden in a jungle. It's just proper hydration.
In a biomechanical sense, absolutely.
So here's a final thought for you to carry with you today. We spend so much time and energy worrying about the hardware of our bodies, our bones, our muscles, our weight. We go to the gym, we drink milk for our bones, but how often do you really think about the software or maybe the liquidware that makes it all run?
That's the question.
If you started treating your body like a high-performance hydraulic machine that needs daily fluid maintenance instead of a rusty old car you only look at when it breaks down, how would that change the way you get out of bed tomorrow morning?
It might just change everything.
Perhaps that feeling of aging really is just the feeling of drying out. And if that's the case, well, stay juicy, everyone.
Keep the fluids moving.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.